Well, welcome back.
Yeah, no,
back in the studio.
C-Suite Unfiltered.
Yes, we took a week off for the conference.
You got to post the full one of the actual thing. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to bother the media team. I'm sure they're very busy. Yeah. So, yes, we will post the live C-Suite Unfiltered. So if you weren't there at Mike's Landscape Summit, we'll post that. I got to interview Liz and Chuck. So that was fun. Yeah. What were your thoughts on that? I guess we can just start right there.
I thought you guys did a good job. Usually live podcasts are pretty brutal. Yeah. To just be there. It's like, well, why are we here if they could just record this? Mm-hmm. So I thought you guys did a good job. Obviously, it was, you guys prepared the questions, or most of them. And so it was a little more organized. I thought it was good. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want it to be, it was awkward getting up there because I was like, well, do I say this isn't actually a podcast, this is us talking to you guys. Yeah. But then I was like, or I could lean into it and make it like it is the podcast. Yeah. I don't know. I think either way you win or lose people. Some people are going to be like, well, I don't want to just listen to a podcast live. And then other people will be like, oh, this is fun. Yeah. It's more of a bit, if you will. Yeah. So we had the Landscape Summit Conference last week. And then we also had the Augusta Nation Conference afterwards. So I wanted to just do kind of a recap. What were some of the highlights for you? What were some of the lowlights? What do you feel went well? What do you feel like did not go well? Mm-hmm. So what were some of Mike Andy's highlights?
Awards is always a highlight for me, giving the awards to the franchisees and owners of Augusta Nation. So obviously this year it was pretty emotional for the franchisee of the year. Mm-hmm. And so that was good. The dinner with Dr. Kashi and his wife and some of his team on the Monday night, that was a pretty good highlight. Wednesday with the franchisees and all Augusta Nation is always the highlight for me. Those 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever, are the best because everyone in the room's on the same page and we all know what's going on. And that's always the fun. Yeah. The fun. So hopefully next year we'll have a full day instead of just half a day like this time. But those are probably the three I'd come to my mind right off the bat. Yeah.
You had, for the public conference, so you had 6 keynotes, I believe? Eight, excuse me. You had 8 keynotes. Was there a favorite that you had?
You know what's funny is I actually think my second one was my best one. The follow-up calls.
I'm trying. Oh, yeah. You crushed that one.
I thought I thought I did the best job as a presenter then.
Yeah. It was very engaging. High energy. Yeah. So I like that one.
And I did a better job of mixing in the humor earlier on to kind of loosen everyone up and loosen me up. So, just learning from that.
Yeah. I think the crowd was very engaged. Yeah. I think you did a great job of keeping them engaged as well as other speakers, trying to actually interact with them and break down that barrier because some conferences, and you use this word and I really like it, is some conferences feel very sterile, right? And it's okay, presenter on stage, I shut up and sit in the audience versus we want that engagement. We want that energy. And I felt like the crowd brought it. And I appreciate that, right? I think it was fun. I personally loved your the problem with watching Mike Andy's videos.
Oh, really?
Yes. Okay. I think it was an unoriginal message in an original way.
Cool.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What you said wasn't anything groundbreaking, but you framed it in a new way to get people to think. And I like that you showed your YouTube subscriber graph because it's the real numbers of look, guys, I posted videos for 5 years, flat line of subscriber growth. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, it just skyrockets. Yeah. So I thought that was very practical and you can apply it to really anything, which is YouTube, you put out 1,500 videos or something. And it's for sales, for lawn care, for landscaping, you have to put up thousands of estimates, thousands of door hangers, thousands in advertising. You have to pour out for your employees, for your managers, for your customers. And then one day, hopefully it'll take off. It's the reps, the time under the bar. Yeah. I thought it was a very original take on a unoriginal concept. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Yeah. Right? People talk about that all the time, but you were let me spin it.
Yeah.
So that was my favorite of yours. Cool. Did you have any favorite keynotes from anyone else?
I was impressed with all the people from the audience, from the community that we brought on instead of regular speakers. So traditionally regular speakers disappoint me. And this year I felt the people that we asked to come from the audience, from the community, turf dogs,
yard dogs, military green,
cuts, and then
Sam
Gustin. Those ones, they put a lot of time and effort into it. You could tell they rehearsed it. It was well put together. and they had the energy. And so I was really happy with those. I was also really impressed with Brian Fullerton.
Yeah.
And I asked him specifically to do something non-business.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good keynote about like relationships and family. And so I kind of prepped him right before because he's like, where is this coming from? Like I'm doing this like non-business thing. So I gave him a breakdown and he's like, yeah, like now you think about it, all the people that I know that have $10 million plus businesses have been all divorced. And like, it's like, well, really, are you successful? So anyways, that was a good keynote.
Yeah.
But overall, those were all the highlights. I think this year we definitely indexed towards a smaller size company average compared to last year. Like last year you got Corey Ballard, you got Tommy Mello, I forget who else we had, but like everyone was massive companies that were delivering and presenting.
Yep.
And so this year, everyone was mostly under 2 million. So next year we'll probably get a better mix because this year we kind of indexed smaller and went towards more that direction. And so next year I do expect it to be like me talking about some other strategies like multiple locations and franchising and licensing and like other things for scaling and like GM and regional, like that sort of stuff. And then we'll index towards a larger size company. So, but I'll do a better mix next year. I think we kind of did really, really big last year and then much, much smaller this year as an average. And then next year I want to kind of blend the two.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. I thought all the speakers were fantastic. I think it was one of the best events I was a part of, and not just because I'm part of the team that puts it on, but just having been to lots of conferences, hearing a lot of different people speak. I thought from a holistic view of every speaker, just way above average, phenomenal content, preparation, execution. It was great. I loved the Yard Dogs. I just loved the energy they brought. And I think for them, as well as the Kellys, Will and Larissa, it's very hard to present with another person on stage. Yeah. If you've ever done it, it's extremely hard. And the pacing, the cadence, the transitions were fantastic. So, appreciate those guys for coming out and being willing to talk. I loved it. So I got to ask, though, because a lot of people are already going to want to know, you got any insight on the vision for next year? Not asking you to give anything away specifically, but, people are asking, where's it going to be? Same vibe, same speakers. Come on, Mike, give us something.
Yeah, definitely not same speakers. We'll always keep it fresh.
Cool.
There's a few that we want to keep, like Dan Ralph's is always a fan favorite.
Yeah, he's great.
A couple others, but we'll change up the speakers. I want to make, next year we'll definitely index more towards much larger companies because like I can get people there that do have $100 million businesses and stuff like that. So I'll try to do that. Timing, October is not a good time to have it. We want to do more in December. Okay. So that way, like leaf season, mowing's all done. And for a lot of different industries, it is slower in December and the first couple weeks of December. And so that's what we're thinking. Traveling that far, it really just was not worth the extra cost.
For you and your team?
Yeah, 100%. Like, we just didn't see... And like, I was doing it originally for the fact that we're close to equip people and knock out two things in one. But, like, I'd say maybe half the audience did that.
Yep.
And the other half were subject to, like, extremely high prices of the hotel. So, I just think we're not going to do it there. Probably, most likely, probably not going to. And then I do want to include other home services, too. Because I think there's value in learning a lot from other industries. And some of my best ideas that we've done is like looking at other industries that are close by, like cleaning, pressure washing, roofing.
General home services.
Yeah, and I think we can learn a lot from those. So I've already mixed that in the past couple of years. Like Pat Clark this year was from pressure washing.
Yep.
And then last year was Tommy Mello from garage doors. So
and EJ McCoy this year.
EJ, does scoop shoulders. So I want to mix a little bit more of that in. And then we'll probably rebrand it. That's kind of like the big one is we'll probably rebrand the conference a little bit for more home service summit, and then have more time for Augusta Nation.
Cool. I love it. Well, what I'll add is leave a comment of when and where you want it because
please.
1, it helps the algorithm. 2, Mike will see it. So just let us know when and where you want it to be.
That is kind of predetermined, but I gotta hold that on.
Well, I know, but I have to poke. I have to see. I have to see what you're willing to give the people. I thought it was a great event overall. I thought you did fantastic. I think having been to all of your landscape summits, your preparation was phenomenal and some of the best keynotes I've ever heard you give. I think you are natural. Like you can get on stage, you're comfortable in front of people, you're comfortable with a mic in your face, but the the preparation showed this year for sure. I can tell you put a lot of work into it. I can tell Dr. Kashi helped you because all your keynotes are very easy to follow, but very impactful. So kudos to you. I'll say that.
I appreciate it.
Dr. Kashi coming was kind of cool. And now we're saying his name publicly. I know at first we were kind of not. So he's okay with that, I'm assuming. Obviously you acknowledged him at the
He prefers
conference.
being kind of like the person behind the scenes. And the vast majority of his clients don't talk about him. There are a few that have recently started to, like the Hermosis, and now when I watch their content, I'm like, oh, they talked about that from him, and like you pick up on all these things, and like whenever they say a friend, it's him. Yeah. So if you ever just want to know if they ever say I was talking to a friend, it's him. But I think a lot of times people are a little afraid of like sharing people's names that they're getting coaching from or learning from. Yep. And I'm not really that way. I think like he deserves the credit. And I think the bigger concern is like, what happens if he gets really busy and he doesn't have time for me kind of thing, right? Yeah. So I could see why some people that are really good are like, hey, I'm not going to say his name because I don't want people to go do that. But he deserves everything that comes his way, and he's helped me a lot. So I'm happy to, he's okay with me saying it. And he just wants me to take full ownership of my ideas, because his goal is not to create ideas, it is to refine them and make them in a way that is more helpful to people and more palatable. And I think that was accomplished during the conference, because some of my keynotes, like it was the same concept but like a very different delivery style. So like we just had to like really hack things apart, tear stuff apart, and like people like consistently keep talking about the Three Little Pigs. Like that was not the Three Little Pigs analogy. It was like a very complex way I had done it before. Yeah. And I think for some people this year, especially the big operators, they were like, oh man, this is so simple. But it's like, look, I take the exact same concept that was like a bunch of graphs, and I showed like economic projections and all the rest of it. And I just boiled it down to what actually was going to be useful. And that's what people are remembering. Yeah. And so sometimes like simpler is better. Yeah. And so I think for some people it was like a bit of a change, and they didn't like it, especially the bigger operators, because they're used to the more complex stuff. But like just having adding complexity for the sake of adding complexity is just making you feel smart and making you feel like giving your ego a scratch, both to the speaker and to the listener. I just want the majority of people to get the concept and go do it in their business. So if I have to go down to the Three Little Pigs and the Big Bad Wolf, like let's go. Yeah. But they'll remember it, and hopefully when they're in the situation that they need to have the identity of a bricklayer when they're really out in the straw phase, it makes sense, hopefully. So that's kind of why.
Yeah, I think one that really stuck just in my conversations with folks was the 4L framework. Yeah. Fantastic framework. I think it's a slightly unoriginal idea, but presented in an original way. And I think it's very quickly I had a conversation with the business owner. He was like, well, I have a general manager and he's running the business. I'm doing location 2 or whatever. And I don't want to disclose who this was or give too much information, but I was like, well, let's just go to the 4L framework. Like, what is that general manager struggling with? And it was like, it's his leadership skills. It's like, perfect. So that's all you have to work on. Like, do you have the leads? Do you have the labor? Do you have the cash, the liquidity? Like, then you just need to make him a better leader, him or her a better leader. And if you can't, you need to find someone else that can be a better leader. Or maybe you need to take a step back from all your side projects and just step into a leadership role. I think that was probably the biggest takeaway I got from the whole conference, as well as probably the most common theme of what I talked about with people after sessions was, okay, using the 4L framework, what are the problems in my business? How do I fix it? I love that framework, and I will use it forever on coaching now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it'd be cool because everyone that was at the conference and heard it, whenever they watch my videos now, they're going to know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. It's like identify which constraint of the 4L framework that this person needs help on, and then like literally every slide I showed is like the strategy both fast and slow, with money and without money. Yeah. And so it's pretty straightforward. And so when in doubt, like when you don't know what to do in your business or you're hitting a wall, if you just look at that framework and then like literally use the next 4 slides of like what to do at each of those stages, you really could solve anything. Yeah. And so, I think it was a good framework. I originally thought I was going to write a book about it. Yep. I have a call today with Dr. Kashi to go over it, but I don't think we're going to, honestly. In doing the conference, I realized just how much more I think I have to improve at communicating on stage, but more or less like in short form webinars and like presentation style, I can improve a lot. And so I think I can really want to hone that in and then use that skill to just make the businesses massive. And then when I write a book, there'll be more notoriety and like worth behind what I'm talking about, because the the businesses are so much bigger. So like as much as I want to share the 4L framework, it's like I can talk about it in the videos, and I can not spend the next 8 months of my life grinding my face into the book. Cause like at this level, like that is what I would expect of myself, is to spend 8 to 12 months of just every day working 5, 6, 7 hours on it. And I would hate every minute of doing that. And I think that if I just spend that time on growing the businesses much, much larger over the next few years, I write the exact same book and it just has a different impact. So I think that's the direction I'm going. I feel like I have a lot to share, but I don't think a book right now is the best way to do that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
And it's kind of the $100 million leads approach, where you're basically going to say, I'm going to prove this framework. Let me build my businesses over the next couple of years. Then I'll write the book saying like, here's the proof. The proof is right here. I scaled up Augusta, I scaled up Copilot, whatever. And now here's the proof, and here's how I did it.
Yeah. Like if over the next year and a half, 2 years, we keep doing these turnarounds and we grow the audience from 150,000 subs to 500,000 or 1 million, and we can really nail it. If we can do that, and then I write a book and I have 1 million people, and I'm like, hey, by the way, if you want to know exactly what I'm doing behind the scenes of every single one of these turnarounds, just go buy this. That makes a lot of sense. And so the only reason I'd really even think about doing the book is it taps into an audience that's not watching videos on YouTube, not watching Facebook stuff, not on any of my socials, and it taps into a very high value audience. It's the only reason I'd do it. And so I don't know if that's worthy yet of my time. And I think I need to focus on like the skill that I've just started to really crack, in my opinion, which is like short form presentation, and like nail it, do better webinars, better like demos of Copilot, better demos of P4P. Like I need to redo my whole messaging around P4P.
Yeah.
Because it's been skewed. Like I've gotten too much in the weeds of it.
Yep.
Instead of just being like, oh yeah, like kind of what I did that one day. I was like, this is year 5 of my business. This is year 6. One thing changed. I added P4P.
Yeah.
Like that's enough of a sales pitch. I don't need to be like, okay, so it's like this percentage of labor revenue, and then you're gonna have yellow slips, and you're gonna have that for quality, and then you have projects, and like it's just too much in the weeds. It's like show the vacation instead of like the flight to the vacation and all the nitty gritty details. So I just need to do a better job of communicating that, so that way the people actually do it. And I think I was communicated to me Monday evening at dinner with Dr. Kashi. I was like, he was pushing me on that.
Yes.
I was very frustrated. I've always been frustrated if people don't adopt P4P. He's like, we can fix this. Like you're selling it wrong. Yeah. And so he's very good at that sort of thing, and just helps me like simplify things and focus on the goal and like where I want people to go, instead of just like, oh, like this is, and that's how my keynotes have always been, like very structured, and like they're decent, but like I just want them to get here. That's all I want them to do. Yeah. And stop trying to appear smart by all this other stuff.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I had a very brief conversation with Dr. Kashi about the structure around selling P4P. And he was basically like, why are you defending something that the proof is there, but you're defending it to nobody? That was like what I reduced from the conversation. I might not be saying it the same way he said it. But essentially he reduced how you're selling P4P to that. You're defending something that has tangible proof to nobody.
Right.
And I was like, and that even changed how I thought. I was like, well, maybe that's how I present it to the guys, like on a frontline employee perspective. I'm like, no, look at the numbers. Like, this is how it works. Like, last week you made this. And it's like, no, the proof's there. Like, why am I like fighting him over the numbers? I need to educate him on efficiency and like how this can benefit him outside of work, right? So it's just interesting.
And that's like the thing he's taught me a lot of is defensibility versus defense. Yep. So like, I do not need to show you my defense, but it needs to be defensible. So what that means is, instead of showing you a chart and showing you all the data, I should just make a statement and say, if you want to actually see the proof of this, let me know after the conference. Talk to me later. And it's defendable arguments. And so with P4P, like I just need to say like, this literally quadrupled my profits. And I went from 0 distributions to $280,000 in 12 months and worked 5% as much in the business. Like that makes a lot of sense. And it's all defendable. I can show you the profit and loss statements. And so, yeah, I'm sure that's what we're going to probably go over today. So, and I always come out of those like feeling so defeated. So, like, dude, man, going into conference, like, especially because I was kind of cramming the last few in, like, dude, I would just come out and be like, I have to rework this entire presentation, like, from scratch. Like the Little Pigs one, for example, like, that was like a completely different, like, same idea, but different layout. And by the end of that, like, talk with him, I was like, dude, I have to restart, and it's like a week until conference. So, yeah, I think I'll just get better, and I look forward to like even next year already, because I'm like, dude, if I could jump that much higher, like this next one, I can just crush.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Well, I had a question, a little bit selfish, but I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about this because you pushed on it pretty hard, not only at the Augusta only conference, but also publicly that, you are still getting coaching. And you feel that if you are telling people that they should get coached or they should have consultants or they should get secondary opinions to push their personal growth, you should also be doing that yourself. I think that's commendable. But then I started thinking inwardly. I was like, well, I've jokingly but also seriously called myself like a student of Mike Andy's. I've told people like the only people that listen to more of your content are the media guys because they have to edit it. Every video you've ever put up, every course you've ever put up, like I take it, I watch it, I digest it. And I feel like I've been your student. You've been my coach. Not that we've had one-on-one sit-downs. Obviously, as your manager, we'd sit down and talk about the business, but we really never talked about myself individually unless you remember a time when we have. It's more about the business or like how I can lead better, how I can train better. Very tactful. So do you feel like I should look into getting a coach? Because I feel like you have been my pseudo-coach, but that's been more through osmosis, through just watching you, from learning from you, not directly sitting down and like me being like, hey, I have a personal problem, or this is what I'm like mentally struggling with. Do you think that's something I should look into?
So in my opinion, the best form of coaching is actually to see someone operate outside of behind a camera. So I learned far more from watching how Dr. Kashi operated in 2 or 3 hours of dinner than I have in all our keynotes. And I took more away from that personally and exactly like what I want to do, how to operate, et cetera. And so in my opinion, the only reason to get a coach is if there's not someone right above you that you can watch every day. And that's what I've struggled to get the past couple years.
Right.
And it's not a matter of like me being so great. It's just like we don't live in an area where there's a lot of tech entrepreneurs. We don't live in an area where there's like a lot of really successful people that are still in the trenches. They usually move down to Seattle. They get out of here. And so that's been tough the past couple of years because I don't have that like person I can watch right above me. And so like for a while that was College Calling Junk. Omar and his partner, they started a franchise, went on a Shark Tank. This was like 10 years ago. And so I kind of watched them grow a little bit. But now I'm at the point where, okay, like they're still doing that. That's great. But like I have software and like real estate and like all these other things going on that like I need to learn more and I need someone above them. And so that's been tough for me the past couple of years. I don't have that. I think for someone like yourself, and I think for any employees that are listening, like ideally you get to see directly every day how your boss operates, and if that person is above you and still progressing, it's a really like that's the best form of a coach. It's a person that's right above you. Because then they literally can just copy what they're doing. So even like some of the people that came with Dr. Kashi booked calls with me yesterday.
I heard about that.
And paid for 50 minutes or whatever because they see, okay, he's like a couple years ahead of me. He's not 20 years. He's not below me, but he's like right above me, and he's seen more than I have. And so the ability to be able to have someone else that you can watch and do it is like far more valuable to me than a coach. And everyone learns a little differently. I learned a lot just by watching how he operates. And like the very soft skills like I still need to refine. And so I think it's always valuable to get third-party perspective. And if I was you, I would probably lean on the leadership team for critiques and then watch what I'm doing to become better. I'm just like, okay, I need to like copy that, or like I don't like that, and like just analyze all of that. And the challenging part right now is like you're in a different office. Right? I think when we get together in a closer office, it like helps so many things. Even the other day I was talking with Liz and we were talking about a certain initiative, and like we were like, well, could Lee do this? And we're like, well, we don't know how busy he is, like because we're not there. And we don't want to like overburden him, but like maybe he's not overburdened and like he would want to do this. So that's sometimes a challenge, but I think and when we get closer, that would probably be a benefit to you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think just proximity will help me, being in the same room as you and Liz, and I think that's maybe what has created distance between us in a professional sense, right? That like this is when we spend time together is this, and we want to put out content and we go over this, and usually 5 minutes before is like update on X, update on Y, and then okay, cool, see you next week, right? So this is our FaceTime, and it's not even really about the business. I think that would really help me. One thing that I have really been working through is the framework of inspiring people. I think because you are removed more from your original location, I feel like that burden falls on me. And I feel like, not that I need someone to inspire me to inspire others, because I've been inspired by you. I bought into your vision, the greater vision of Augusta. But I think being able to bring my struggles or these frameworks I'm working on to someone else might be beneficial outside of Augusta, right? Because one thing that, like, you know, Chuck and I say to each other as coaches and taking things off your plate is like, we're not Mike Andes. We're not trying to be Mike Andes, right? And I think if I had a third party person like teaching me how to be an inspiration through the way I communicate and through my mannerisms and through my skill set, I think that could be a benefit to the Bellingham team and also franchisees or owners with inside of Augusta. So that's something I've been thinking about, just more from like my mental ability to lead and to grow people, not really from a strategic standpoint. I think I've learned a lot from you. I think 6 years in this business, I really know what systems work and what don't, but it's more the soft skills, right? Of leadership, of compassion, of building people up, you know, knowing when to have hard conversations. I've gotten better at it, but maybe someone outside of the business could help me better with those skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I'm hoping next year we can all, as a leadership team, go to like kind of a conference around leadership management, stuff like that. Stuff like that will help. I think too, books are helpful. It is another level when you like, okay, I've already listened to all the books. Yeah. Now I need someone to actually critique me personally. But the thing is, if you can be self-introspective, you can get 95% of that from the books.
Right.
And watching other people. And so like, that's why I haven't paid for coaching for a long time. It's like, I can still learn a lot from books and watching other people do stuff. Then there's this other level of like, okay, when the camera's not on, when they're not writing a book, I want to see that. And that's when you usually have to pony up and pay, because that's when you're trying to get access to someone that has like seen it all and they are not surprised by things that are a big shocker to you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's like a helpful skill. And so, like, so even like the daily masterminds for Augusta, like for the vast majority of them, I'm a little bit ahead of them. They can just literally follow what I'm doing, and they will get the result in a delayed fashion. Yeah. And so I think that's like the best form of coaching. Yeah. And it's just harder. Like it just sounds so egotistical, but like at this level, like it's just hard to find that person that's right above me.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Well, I don't have really a way to preface this next thing I wanted to talk about, but I'll just jump right in. Okay. So, there's a common denominator for me that I need to explain to you. So, I have, I'll just rip the Band-Aid off. Okay. I have cried in public 2 times. Once was at my wedding. And
I was there for that.
Once was at the Augusta Nation franchise. And the common denominator is you were there for both. So, how do we address that?
You were crying so much, though, more when she was walking down the aisle.
Oh, yeah. I was a big baby. Big baby. I was a mess. Yeah. I mean, it's the best moment of my life.
That was a good moment. It was good.
Yeah, I'll own that.
It was good. Outside, really nice venue.
I think, it was hot. You know, stress, all the emotions, whatever. But no, I figure I don't think I haven't talked to you about this, but I don't think I'm gonna. I thought about it. I was like, well, maybe my presentation I could make public or post it on the C-suite. And I was like, I don't think I will. And it's not because I cried. I'm obviously talking about it right now. I think I just want to keep that to Augusta and kind of the more intimate stories I shared, if you will. Yeah. But what were your thoughts on that?
So I'm a sympathy crier. So I didn't like bawl, but I definitely like my tears came because I knew exactly where I was when I sent you that message.
Yes.
And I remember like this sounds so bad, but the effect I wanted happened.
That's fair.
Like I knew that would, and I sent the email instead of doing it in person too, because like I know that you take it really personally. Yep. And I was frustrated, and I knew that I didn't need to tell you what to do. Yeah. I just needed to tell you what I was doing. Yeah. And you would be mad.
I'd react.
And so
it worked.
So I did get the reaction I planned for, but like it did take me right back to where I was at. So I had just finished running Oyster Dome, and I was like thinking about like what I should be doing. And so typically when I'm running down, I like make notes. So one of them was like just like send an email to the office and Lee saying I'm putting money in the bank account and see, like, just I want to see what happens. And so, the reason I probably like teared up a little bit was like I remember that emotion too, and then I think the part that made you emotional and like me emotional as well is like the person that we were dealing with. We wanted them to succeed, and they either didn't have it in them or they weren't ready for it, and or there was things happening in their personal life that prevented at that time and stage to rise to the occasion. So. Yeah, I'm a sympathy crier, so if someone cries on stage, like I immediately get welled up typically. Yeah. If they're presenting well and I'm connecting with them. So obviously we connect really well, and like I know you, so, and I knew exactly what you're going through that stage. Yeah. And I knew I was putting pressure on you. Yeah, and totally. In that moment, I knew those few months were really tough. Yeah. So obviously caring for you, I was a sympathy crier. Yeah, I appreciate it. Here's the frustrating thing for me is I think it's not a bad thing, like, because you've cried on stage before, and like this isn't like, it's not a bad thing to show vulnerability. It's not a bad thing to show passion. I think that I was frustrated in the moment because I was like, I've run through this multiple times, and it's like facts, figures, dates, like this is happening, and then all of a sudden I got to that moment, and here's the thing, that I remember that message while on stage. Yeah. That Mike sent me a message. I never said it in my run through. It was like I was remembering it in real time. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, this is a great transition here. Right? So like in my mind, I'm like, because you and I think are pretty similar. I put a nice framework for how I want to start my presentations, and then after that I just go bullet points. I don't know if that's how you do it now after talking to Dr. Kashi, but for me it's like, okay, if I can get myself started, then I can just hit bullet points and I know where I want to go. But that was not a bullet point. So it hit me in the moment. I was like, oh yeah, Mike sent me that message. And I think what hit me, and I talked to Liz afterwards, and for people that weren't there, don't get the context, like, I apologize, but I think what hit me is like, okay, you're sending me a message that you're putting money back into a business that, one, you should only take money out of because of how established it is, and two, every dollar you make at that business, I truly believe as your employee, will go to something better. Yeah. That impacts the franchisees, the owners that were in the room, that impacts... It's what allowed us to fund the growth of the franchise. Exactly. It cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars for years. Yeah, that impacts P4P, that impacts Copilot. And so I think that's when all of that like emotion hit me, is like, that text hit me so hard because I was like, we are wasting opportunities. Yeah. It's not about the money. It's not, and at that point too, I had no financial incentives in Bellingham. Yeah. You were not giving me bonuses based on certain things, so it was for me just such a raw reaction of like, I wasn't worried about like, oh no, I'm not going to get a bonus. It was like, this needs to be making money for the betterment of everyone else, and that's what hit me in that moment. And I hope there was some gravity to it, if you will. Yeah. But I felt horrible because I didn't know it was going to happen. Like, I really didn't. So hopefully it went okay though. It was good. I thought it was really good. I'll talk to you after. Okay, cool. Yeah. But that was the other thing I had. Last thing I have, unrelated, but it happened at conference, and I thought I'd ask, and I didn't ask Chuck for permission, so hopefully Chuck's okay with this. But he and I both get approached on a pretty regular basis to do coaching outside of Augusta. And I've never asked, and I've never even entertained it, but we both, this conference, talked, and we were like, multiple people offered us money to do consulting for them. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, if Chuck and I moonlighted, not saying we're going to, but we both talked and we were like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, this guy offered me X to do an hour, or like to do weekly Zoom calls. What are your thoughts on that? I'm not opposed to it, and the problem is that same service is being given to the owners of Augusta Nation, and so it becomes a way to jeopardize the value of being there, and it's something I've been very careful of. So like, we're raising prices on lawn care web design, we're raising prices on P4P, we're raising prices on the franchise license, but the franchisees that are in, they don't have any changes. Like they get it all for free, and we're building this other thing that's gonna like, it's going to be free for Augusta Nation, but I'm going to make the public pay. And that is all very strategic because you're building this value stack that just becomes more and more, into the point where it's like, it's insanity not to join. And it will get to that point. Cause like every year I'm just like, okay. So like last year we added a 24/7, AI, but I paid for all of that. All the upfront. It'll take me probably 4 or 5 years to recoup that money from the minutes at Command Center. And by that time, the technology will be obsolete. And so, this coming year, there's multiple things that we have in the works, as well as like we just finished the instant price form. We're not doing that for lawn care web design people. It takes a ton of work, massive amounts of infrastructure to make those things fast and SEO friendly. And So I'm just trying to build this stack of value for Augusta.
Right.
I would say that doing that as a coach, giving coaching to people outside of Augusta would be something I would be against for that fact. I would say I would not be opposed though to like content creation and then monetization of your information. And I think that in doing that in a certain way, you could actually provide more value to Augusta because like, oh, look, by the way, this is a big thing for me. So like I just raised my price for coaching $1,300, right? For 50 minutes. And so I do it because like I can only handle so much. And at Grad for Conference, I got a whole bunch of them. Like I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I'll probably raise it again.
Yeah.
And so the thing is this, by doing that, now when I have a 45-minute Mike Minutes Mastermind for the franchisees yesterday, it's like, oh, I just got 45 minutes of value, saw behind the scenes of literally the financials and what the attrition rate is at Copilot, and I didn't pay a single penny extra for that.
Right.
And that $12.99 that I would have paid for 50 minutes of Mike time, I get that 20 times in a month, plus the website and the coaching from 101, all this other stuff. And so I think the value of potentially you putting a price tag on it in the long run is people will start to value you more, right? It's like, oh, well, he's paid by Mike to like give coaching away. It's like, well, no, actually, like someone else is willing to pay him $300 for this same 30 minutes, and so this is real value.
Right.
And so I'm able to attribute value to the mastermind because I have a dollar amount associated with my time.
Yeah.
And so there's definitely something I think that could be said for that. I would probably be okay with one-time calls, but not multiple.
Right.
Because it's like, hey, one time, you're good. But if you want this every month, you're going to have to join Augusta.
Right.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
A one-time call.
Yeah. And it's Chuck and I, the conversation didn't extend past like, oh yeah, like I've had offers before. Oh yeah. Chuck said someone offered him like, I think 300 for an hour.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. And I think Chuck's worth that. Like hand over fist, he is worth that for his business advice and knowledge in the industry. But I was like, oh, I've never asked you. So I'll just ask you on the podcast. I don't think I want to. I think in a way, like I hold Augusta and the brand you've built in such high regard that I want to keep that exclusive to franchisees. I also think that the way I've learned business is inside of the Augusta systems. So although I do think I would have value to the average business owner, I would try to teach them the ways of Augusta and they don't have to conform to it. Whereas on a owner coaching call inside of Augusta, this is a system that we've created. And if you want command center support, if you want X to work correctly, you need to do this. Versus an independent contractor or business owner, they can do whatever they want. They have the freedom. So I don't think I want to, but I thought, well, there is ways to monetize the skills that I have. I think part of that is the C-suite. And, we're getting close to 1,000 subscribers, so that's exciting.
But for example, if you ever like move out of coaching, then it makes it more fair game, right? Because now the value you're providing to the organization is not that what you're providing to the public, right?
Okay.
And so as long as someone's not sharing intellectual property, and like stuff that I do share internally, then I'm fine with it. As long as that same value is not the same value I am using to get people to be part of Augusta. And I've said, like I said from the beginning, it's going to be 5 years before it'll be painfully obvious that you should be joining Augusta. So we have one more year left. And so I have a stack of what this year we're doing to make sure that I hit that marker. But like, it's not bad to have a dollar amount attached to it. So that when people like do take a 30 minutes, like, oh, like this is worth $300. And they look at it a little differently. Like when people get on the calls with me and they've paid $1,300, they are organized. They know they have their questions. They are like, okay, let's keep moving. I have this one and I wanted to go through this. And it's not like, oh, like how's things going? Like, cause they like, oh, this is $1,300.
Yeah.
And so, I think I'm not like opposed to it.
Yeah.
Especially one times. Cause one time is like, it's almost like a teaser.
Yeah.
From a sales perspective. It's like, hey, this is what you can get every single month included in this other price that you get all this other stuff. And my goal is like just making this other stuff, just keep stacking it.
Yeah.
Until it is literally so painfully obvious that joining Augusta makes sense. The only reason you wouldn't do it is if you have pride in your name.
Yeah.
In terms of your personal name. But if you want like better enterprise value, better sellability, better systems and procedures, more profit, it just becomes more and more making sense. And so that's why like fixing the dollar amount per month and then just like we just keep adding value. It makes it like the value equation to start getting nuts.
Yeah.
And I just want it to be like so incredibly painfully obvious down the road that you save more money, you make more money, and you get all this other stuff like support and coaching and a community and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and I think just to reiterate on the fact that we just had conference, you can't put a price tag on that community. No. You just can't. The energy when we had our franchise dinner is just like, I've just never felt that energy before in that room. You get people from all across the country and Canada, you know, just like mingling, and like they all have a shared mission, a shared vision. And then there's people that you're like, these people would never make sense outside of Augusta, but then they're like best friends inside of Augusta, and I think that's cool. So that's all I have. If you want to move to some not financial advice,
go for it.
I know you have some.
Yeah, I wrote some down because I always forget.
Yeah, well, my not financial advice is a shout out.
Okay.
All right, so that is going to be a shout out
Oh, yeah, what's this thing
to
here?
Joshua German, I believe is how you say German Lawn Care. He commented on one of our videos recently and asked if he could get coaching from us, and I said if he buys us coffee, and so he brought us some coffee to the franchise or to the conference. I know you're not a big coffee drinker, but I did tell him I would drink it and give him a review. Fantastic, very nutty, very smooth. I'm a huge fan.
Very cool.
So it is a
I don't even know how to say it.
Sumatera Lingtong coffee.
Cool. What did you coach him on?
I haven't yet.
How to
I
build
feel like I have to.
coffee?
I feel like I have to. I have to do it. But shout out Joshua. Thank you for the coffee. I'm drinking it right now,
Let's go.
and it's fantastic. So
Very good. That's your non-financial advice?
Yeah, check out this coffee.
Okay, I have financial and non-financial advice. Financial advice is basically coming to the end of the year, time to put in your Roth IRA. Mm-hmm. You know, $6,500 if you're single. I think it's $12,000 or $13,000 if you are married, joint. And so put that money in there, let it grow. If it's a Roth IRA, there's a difference between Roth and traditional, so look it up. It's just basically when you're going to get taxed. You're
I'm a Roth guy.
Yeah, I'm a Roth too. And then the second non-financial advice is something I actually talked in depth about on the mastermind yesterday for Augusta Nation, and that is Reminders app. It is your best friend. They have some cool new features they just came out with, shareability of reminders list, and there's a lot of cool stuff you can do now. When you drive into a certain spot, it can alert you, so you can do it based upon the mapping. And so like when I drive into office, like I'll be like, oh, sick. Yeah, I needed to do X, Y, and Z right when I walk in the door. So I just make a reminder that it'll pop up only when I drive into a certain area.
That's cool.
So a bunch of stuff like that. The shareability of the list is good too. I think when we get in the office together, like whenever, hopefully next year, I'll probably make one with you. Yeah. Because then it's more like, okay, I know I'm going to see him tomorrow, and I make a list of like something to talk about.
Yeah, I agree.
So I look forward to having you in the office.
Thank you.
I think obviously this coming year we've made it pretty clear. Like we got all the corporate locations we're going to drive into profitability and like all that sort of thing. But like I'm glad like right when we finishing that, and I think it'll be ready for you to kind of move forward and do something more that will be in the same office.
Yeah, cool. I love it. Well, that's all I got. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe.
Let's go.